Hello, and welcome to episode number 224 of the Board Game Barrage podcast. If you are a first-time listener, it's because we won the Golden Geek Award for Best Podcast. We are so happy that you are here. Board Game Barrage is a podcast about board games, the latest hotness, and how to have fun with your friends, even when you're losing. My name is Kellen, the Red Tank, and I am joined by my best friends, Mark, the Green Tank.
Hello.
Neelan, the Orange Tank.
Hello.
And the ever-lovely Christina, the Blue Tank.
Hello.
Not only are we happy, but we are the champions, my friends. Bum, bum, bum.
We did it.
And we'll keep on fighting till the end.
This
Boom,
is,
boom, boom.
This reminds me of when Neelan sings
That's not the whole
Africa to
song.
us.
There's still plenty of lines. Come on.
We
Oh, guys,
are the
this is a podcast.
champions.
It's about board games.
Are the champions.
Oh my gosh. I was forbidden from singing after previous comments about a birthday song that I did for Mark. I think we will get to board games fast, but we just wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone who voted in the Golden Geek competition. It means the world to us. And, you know, who could have predicted, right?
Yeah, I certainly could not have. Like, honestly, I'm in Vegas now, the land of betting on things. And if I had to have bet before the results were announced, I would not have bet that we were going to win.
And
it.
if you don't know Mark, then you won't know that he's very good at betting.
That's right.
Very good. So
They call me
I don't
Mark
know.
Aces Basada because of all the betting I do.
He's also a gambling addict.
That's true.
Yeah, I love this as a way for Mark to try to like reframe himself a little bit. Like he's like changing who he is just a little bit. I've never heard of this Aces Basada character.
What? You guys have been calling me Aces this entire time. Don't lie to the new listeners. Do we want to tell the story of how we found out this morning? Okay, because I do.
Okay.
Go ahead,
I'll just answer
Aces.
that for you.
Go ahead,
Take it
Aces.
away,
Yeah.
Aces.
Aces Basada.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you for that. So I was excited to see where we're going to land because, you know, I'm into sports. I'm the sportiest of the hosts, I think. I don't think that's telling tales out of school to say that. And so,
Just tell them that I'm second place of the sportiest.
yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Name one sport, Christina.
Christina and I have played organized sports together, in fact.
Yeah,
That's a fact.
true.
That's a fact.
Although don't tell them that we were the red team because that might give people the wrong impression about where our loyalties lie.
That's true. That's very true. But so, yeah, I'm always into competition. So I had the page where the results were going to be posted up on my browser. And every, 15 minutes, I would refresh it. And then,
Every 15 seconds or so.
well, 15 minutes, 15 seconds, same thing. So I was doing this, and then I refreshed it, and the new page was up with the winners announced. And so I clicked on it, did not scroll to see the winners, called Neelan and Kellen on a conference call and said, the results are up. I'm going to go through this now live with you, read the winners, and here we go. And that's what happened. And so I scrolled down.
A couple things here, Mark. Just to first of all, the first thing I heard, I believe, was a woman's voice that
That's
I
true.
did not recognize, and then all of a sudden, I heard in the background someone going, "This is your friend Mark." Like I was like, "There's a scam happening here." It was a number I did not recognize, a woman's voice, like a waiting period, and then "This is your friend Mark."
I couldn't get the voice conferencing to work on my phone, so I had to borrow my girlfriend. Actually, I not only had to borrow her phone, but her herself to make the call, to facilitate the call. But then I read 5 games for Doomsday. This game is broken, and in first place, Board Game Barrage. And then we all cheered on the call,
Or cried.
cried. There
There
were
were
tears.
tears.
Yeah, absolutely.
I couldn't make it. I was on a conference call of the work type where I was working, but Kellen ran out.
I did try to interrupt her
He
conference
interrupted
call.
my
Oh,
work.
cool.
Like he ran out and he was like, he was holding up his finger like number 1, and then he's like, podcast, holding up the number 1. That's all he said.
I love it. I love it. I love hearing that. I love it.
Today on the Board Game Barrage podcast, we are going to be talking all about the Golden Geek Awards and what we think about them. Is Mission Deep Sea, a medium weight game? Oh, God. We'll find out together. But before we do that, we're going to talk about the games that we have been playing this week, including a game from the only true and living Dr. Reiner Knizia, Aristocracy.
You played a game by the only true and living doctor without me?
Well, yes, we did. I can
Curse
confirm.
you all!
She's gone, actually. She literally just walked away. And then Aristocracy by Reiner Knizia, a very mean auction game called Senators, and then the latest hotness. You didn't think we'd forget the latest hotness, Ark Nova. So why don't we jump right into the first game? Mark?
Yes, I was back in LA. And usually when I have been there since my move to Vegas, I've been busy seeing family or taking care of work obligations. But miraculously, this time around, I had a whole day free and was thrilled to spend it playing games all day with none other than Kellen and Neelan, as you all have heard, no Christina. We kicked it all off with a game of Aristocracy by the one true and living the Doctor, Reiner Knizia. What a way to start the day, right? A Knizia game I'd never played, set up, and ready to go when I arrived. More about the setup a little bit later.
You're welcome.
First, while you may not have heard of Aristocracy, this is not a new game. This actually came out in 2019, published by the now defunct Tasty Minstrel Games. And while I'd call most, if not all, of Knizia's designs streamlined, and Aristocracy is no exception, I think it also falls on the lighter end of the spectrum of his games as well. This is much, much closer to Llama than his Stevenson's Rocket or Tigris and Euphrates. Board Game Geek classifies this as just a little lighter than Blue Lagoon or Babylonia, also Knizia games, but for me, it's clearly a step down in complexity from those two. When you start Aristocracy, you'll have a board in front of you separated into 9 different regions, all of a different color, filled with rows and rows and rows of face-down tokens. Your turns are, unsurprising for a Knizia game, very, very simple. All you do is you flip over 3 tokens, then select one type of face-up icon and do the action associated with it. And those icons basically come in 3 main flavors. First, there are 3 types of goods, which are wood, corn, and sheep. And if you select one of the goods, you can take every face-up token that corresponds to that good. So if I flip over 3 tokens and I reveal 2 corn, and there's a face-up corn that was previously flipped on somebody else's turn, I can take all 3 of the corn, the 2 that I flipped and the one that was previously face-up. During the course of the game, you'll get a 9-point marker whenever you hit multiples of 9 total goods. And at the end of the game, you get 5 points for every set of wood, corn, and sheep that you have. So that's how all the goods work. In addition to the 3 types of goods, there are 3 types of buildings. You can choose one type of face-up building that has been revealed and place your buildings on all matching spots on the board. So, to use a similar example, if I flip over 1 castle token among the 3 tokens I flip on my turn, but there were already 3 face-up castles from previous turns, I can put buildings on all 4 of the castle spots if I choose castles for my action. Now, in these cases, I'm restricted to the spots where those tokens randomly happen to be. And the reason that you're placing buildings is because there are specific stacks of 3-point markers around the board, and if you're ever able to connect 2 of them through your string of buildings, you get to take a 3-point marker from each end of that line, giving you 6 points.
That's an orthogonal connection.
That's an orthogonal. To be clear, that's an orthogonal connection. No diagonals around here.
That's the first word a board gamer feels like they've become a board gamer. When
That's
they
true.
Go.
Are there more board gamery words than orthogonal? I mean, meeple. Meeple.
We
but
did a
doesn't-
whole dictionary episode.
Yeah.
What? Way back in the day.
Yeah, look that one up, new listeners. Anyhow, getting back to the game. Going back to placing your buildings in each of the 9 regions of the board, you get points for placing the first 3 or first 5 buildings of your color in that spot in sort of an area control aspect. And then you also get 8 points if you're able to place a building in all 9 regions. Again, for all of this, when it comes to placing your buildings on these tiles, you're at the mercy of where those building tokens happen to be. And then finally, the last type of token are the king and queen markers. If you select either of those type of tokens, you remove them from the board, you put them on a track on the side of the board, which acts as a timer. And depending on how many people are playing, the game can end when either 7, 8, or 9, both king and queen tokens have been removed in that way, and that triggers the end of the game. In addition, when you take those markers off the board, you get to place 1 building for every king or queen marker you've taken off, and this time you do it in any open space you want anywhere on the board. So that's pretty cool. You get flexibility there to complete your links. And that's the entire game. I think you can basically play the game based on my description. The box says 45 minutes. I feel that's pretty darn accurate. I liked Aristocracy. I think the problem that quote-unquote gamers might have with it is the luck involved in flipping the markers and being sort of at the behest of what you flipped. And that's certainly true to some extent. I've also recently read some people complain that you don't really have any choices because it's obvious what you should do on your turn based on how many of an available type of token has been flipped up. Their idea being that you should just take whatever there's the most of. And here I definitely disagree because you are often torn, I think, between taking something that feels strategic for the long term at the cost of taking something that's really juicy that just popped up. Like, I might be close to connecting 2 of the 3-point spots, but man, I just flipped over 2 corn and now there's 5 corn visible. So what do? Do I just like jump at this, or do I try to maintain my long-term strategic aims? That said, okay.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Mark. And I think that's the specific call-out I think that I appreciated about the game, which is that it reminds me of another one of my favorite Reiner games. Well, my favorite Reiner game, Taj Mahal, where it's like you have your best laid plan, right? Like you see, like, okay, I'm going to connect this city to this city, this city to this city, and that's like your strategic overview. But it gets upset along the way because something pops up, someone blocks it. You see this abundance of corn, and then it's suddenly just like, okay, wait, no, that is the most important thing for me to pivot to right now. It serves both those needs very well because the randomness in the tokens can't help but sort of dictate a fair amount of just tactical play. But like a game like Blue Lagoon, you have to have some overarching plan to what you're aiming towards from start to finish. Otherwise, you're just going to be at the mercy of the tiles.
Yeah, absolutely. That said, I still don't think it's a game that I'd ask for or offer up on a game night, aside from maybe as a filler game. Though that, I think, and Kellen can help me out on this, that the setup feels like a pain as far as that goes. And Kellen, you can speak to this. There are something like 60 or 70 spots on the board, and you need to place a face-down token on each of them as you're setting up. So that feels like it might be annoying for a filler game.
Yeah, it definitely is. And, especially as someone who's recently been criticizing games like Wonderland's War for setup and teardown, there's no question that there's a setup commitment here. I do think that contributes to what feels the most different from any of the Blue Lagoons and the Through the Deserts is that rather than tile placement, it's tile removal. And that sounds dumb, but for whatever reason, it felt more like a discovery mechanism where you're looking for corn, but you're also wanting to know where you might, like there are regions that you are choosing to look for that corn because it'll help you more or less. I found it tickling my brain in a way that just felt different than some of those games. And so when people say, oh, should I buy Babylonia? Should I buy Blue Lagoon? I feel like this one actually does occupy a similar but adjacent space that feels a little bit different. I wouldn't say that I enjoy it more than those games, but it is different. And I do find the flip over 3 and then evaluate everything that everybody has flipped over to be very fun. And the way that each tile type resolves is practically identical, which I really just appreciate. It's very elegant. It's like no matter what, you take all of that type of thing, and that lessens some of the is this just a luck-driven game? I just flip over 3 tiles, choose one. Like, no, anything that's not chosen, a la Agricola, is being upgraded in value for future players, which I liked it. I enjoyed it. I'm excited to try it again.
Yeah, I'll definitely say that my first and strongest thought upon wrapping up Aristocracy is that I might need to trade for a copy myself to play with family and friends who aren't gamers, because I really liked, as Callum was saying, the simplicity of teaching it and playing it and the scoring. And I think that while gamers can really be attuned to and sensitive to luck in a game, I think it's often just a purely exciting aspect for non-gamers. Just that luck for non-gamers isn't such a consideration, or they're not as sensitive to it, and it just sparks excitement. I have no doubt that those people in my life will definitely get a kick out of Aristocracy.
Yeah, my overriding thought was, and I was thinking this throughout playing it, would I recommend this to someone over Blue Lagoon? If you were asking me personally, like, I think Blue Lagoon wins out, but this is undoubtedly the more family-friendly version of the 100%. Same sort of game. And like, the thought I kept having was, which of these would I rather teach to my mum as the prototypical example? And I think it's Aristocracy.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you're looking for a Knizia epic a la Tigris or Ra or something along those lines, this is probably a pass if that was what you're looking for. But if you're looking for something light to play with family and the like, I can definitely recommend Aristocracy. Furthermore, For those who are big fans of the fictional land of Gull's Bottom, yes, Gull's Bottom.
What?
This is part of the Gull's Bottom trilogy.
It's part of an expanded universe,
Yes.
and we didn't know it?
Harvest, Harbor, and Aristocracy. They all take place in the Gull's Bottom universe.
Can't wait for the sequel.
Well,
Yeah,
you'll be waiting a long time as TMG is defunct, but maybe somebody will take up the reins. Gull's Bottom is such a rich fictional universe that perhaps somebody else will take it up. But anyway, that
The
is
defining element of that universe is art.
Welcome to Board Game Barrage, everyone. So that is Aristocracy from Reiner Knizia and Tasty Minstrel Games.
We got a chance to play Senators, which is being bandied around as a hidden gem, and I love hidden gems. This is a auction game from the maker of Coup, which I believe is a man and his father who make games together. And this is not going to be for everyone. This is one of the simultaneously meanest auction games I've ever played and ultra random. And that may sound like a bad thing, but I am really excited to play more Senators. But essentially, you are collecting sets of cards through a series of auctions. One player will be the auctioneer, and the other players will make their maximum bid that they're willing to make on a little tile. And then it'll come back to you, the starting player, and you have to choose. Should I sell that card to the player who made the bid, or should I buy it for that price and pay the player that money? So each player is having to make sort of an agonizing bid of, do I want this for 4, or do I want to collect 4? Does Kellen really want it? Should I make it worth 6 because I think he's going to pay me for that auction? That is a fun and unique auction mechanism, but it is combined with the second action that you can take. Auction is the first action. Second action is called Extort, which may be the funniest single action I have ever read in a board game. I mean that quite literally. I was reading the rulebook by myself. No one else was here but my dog, and I was laughing. I was literally laughing out loud because you have cards in front of you that are public and cards that are behind your screen, which are private. And when you win a card at an auction, it goes out in front of you. So Neelan may have just paid 9 coins in order to keep his very expensive wheat or his very expensive fruit or olives. And then I choose action B, extort. I say, Neelan, hi, I would like your olives. I would like them for 6 coins. And literally, Neelan's options are, pay me 6 coins to keep the olives he won in the auction. Or I have to pay him 6, and then I get his olives from the auction. I cannot stress how funny I find this mechanism. It's literally like, you just spent all your money on the auction. Oh, by the way, I'm extorting you. Now give it to me. And once you extort them, it goes behind the screen so they can't even steal it back, giving me, honest to God, white elephant gift vibes where it's stolen once but can't be stolen again. Right. There is a third action where you are sort of turning in these sets in order to bank points, which in this game are Senators, and they cost 10 coins each. And you say to yourself, but Kellen, you said this game was really random. Well, there's an event deck, and the event deck is hysterical, and I don't know how it makes sense, because sometimes the event deck is like, hey, find the player who has the most Senators, which again are victory points, and then give them money for every player they're in front of. And you're like, what? What? Did we read that right? No, we read that right. There are some funny as hell event cards, and there are some really interesting event cards. One of my favorite being a very simple, different type of auction happens. A victory point is being auctioned off for 15 points, and then you just work your way down. I don't want it at 15. Neelan doesn't want it at 14. Mark doesn't want it at 13, until someone is getting a victory point for way below market value of 10. Or a different kind of auction happens where if enough money is contributed, someone will win a point, and if not enough money is contributed, the person who contributed the least will lose a point. And so it's literally like a game of chicken, which actually reminds me of some of the crises in Archipelago. This all combines into a mishmash of an auction, mean auction game with a random event deck where you can't take it too seriously. I really liked this, and I want to say I really like this because I'm about to turn it over to some tanks who did not like it as much as me, but talk to us about what you think about Senators.
It's not that I didn't like Senators. I thought it was a ton of fun. I just think that there is and you've kind of said this already, but there's a big mismatch between the two halves of this game, right? There is like what is a very structured, okay, on my turn, I'm either going to auction, I'm going to extort. These cards are just worth like their face value. You can turn them in sets of 3. Like it's a very dry sort of commodity collecting game. And then you throw on top of that the most ridiculous event deck in the world, where suddenly you could flip over a card and the game is over, or you could flip over a card and someone is getting rewarded for coins. It kind of just felt like I was so in fear of what the next event was going to be right at the start of my turn that it was funny. Like that was hilarious, but it just felt at odds with what was a otherwise very, very tactical auction game.
2 things I have to say about this. First thing is, if you look at the way this is rated on BGG, this is a prototypical Kellen game. Kellen is a guy who, when he sees...
Is much loved.
Is much loved, much beloved.
Thank you.
Much beloved. Much beloved. To clarify, I want to stress
Thank
much
you.
beloved.
Oh, wow. Well, we'll cut out a few of them because
Okay.
that got...
I've used 7. I'll keep at least 3 in just to
okay.
just to make sure the stress is there. Anyhow, Kellen has said this before on the show, but when he looks at the way a game is rated, he doesn't mind seeing high ratings mixed with low ratings. And if you look at a lot of games on BGG, even highly rated games, you'll find most of the ratings are like 9, 8, 7. Almost across the board, 9, 8, 7. You get a 10 thrown in there, you get a 1 thrown in there, right? I would say that's true of 85% of games on BGG. If you look at the way that Senators is rated, you still have that bell curve, but you have a lot more on the ends. I'm looking down at the ratings here, and there's a bunch of 4s, then there's a bunch of 8.5s, and there's a 1 and an 8. There's a lot of polar feelings about this, and that's what I'm speaking for him now. Even though he's much beloved, I feel like I can speak for him a little bit. But Kellen likes games that evoke something in people, be it hate or love, and this is a game that seems to strike that chord.
Yeah, I think it's like we have this dearth. A dearth is the opposite of a lot of. Am I wrong?
You are right.
Or am I wrong? What?
Correct.
Gesundheit. We have this sea of sameness, right, with the sort of 7.0 lighter Euro affairs, and this inspires hatred and love. I don't think it's perfect. I do think you need to go in with the spirit of this is going to be fun more than this is going to be balanced.
Yes.
I think one very specific example, which I love, and again, I just love this because the game ends when 4 war cards come up, and you don't even get to take your turn. Egad, right? And you would say, okay, so those 4 war cards, right? They take out the last 10 cards of the deck, they shuffle them in, so we generally know the game is going to last between 17 and 23 turns. Nuh-uh. Not in Senators. It's random. They could literally be the first 4 cards. It's audacious. I love that. It's dumb. I'm excited to play more of this. I think that for longtime listeners of the show, I believe that my brother's game group is going to absolutely love this, and it will be a riotous time of just screaming and laughing at each other. It is very funny to target someone. I think if players are not willing to do that, they will not enjoy that. You will know if you like this, but again, at a game that is less than 60 minutes long, I think you could do a lot worse. A lot of comparisons online to both Modern Art and Neu Heimat. I don't see it completely, but I do see parts of it. It reminds me a little bit of Ponzi scheme, where sort of make that offer that they can't refuse. I love that sort of tension of that writing line. I find the auctions more interesting than Neelan does for whatever reason. That is Senators by Indie Boards and Cards.
So I'm going to be talking a little bit about Ark Nova, which is, I guess, very much probably the hottest game right now. I think it just, as of today, entered the top 20 on Board Game Geek, despite only have really just hitting people's hands in the last couple of months. It's really only starting to ship out in the last month, which is kind of wild. That's a pretty meteoric rise to the top of the charts. Ark Nova is a game about building a zoo. There is a lot that's going on here, so I'm going to try to condense this as much as I can. You have a board in front of you, which is a grid of hexes where you are putting out enclosures for animals. You're putting out little attractions. You're putting out kiosks. Once you have an empty enclosure, you then have to get an animal to put into that enclosure. But the animals are all cards. There's this massive deck of 200 plus cards that is just riddled with different types of animals. Every animal wants a different size enclosure. It wants different prerequisites. You might want to have some smaller predators before you get a lion into your park. You might have to have a partnership with an African zoo before you get a lion into your park. So to do that, you have to acquire a wealth of just different icons, for lack of a better word. These icons will either be represented on other cards you've got in your tableau or on partnership tokens that you're getting from other actions. The core action system of this game, how you're getting these cards, how you're getting these tokens, how you're getting these enclosures, is through this very cool, streamlined 5-action card row system. Now, if you've played Civilization and New Dawn, this will be very familiar, but if you haven't, this is how it works. You have these 5 action cards, they exist in a row, and the strength of the card is determined by how far right it is. So at any given time, you have one action that's at strength 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, which means that the best time to execute an action is when it's at the strength 5 position. That will determine how powerful that action is. In the simplest example, and I won't go through all of them, in the simplest example for the build action, for instance, the way you build a size 5 enclosure is when the build action is at level 5. Once you use that action, it slides all the way back to level 1, and all the rest of the actions below it shuffle up. So there's this idea of finding the optimal time to use an action when its strength is high in order to set up future actions for the appropriate time to use them. And it's not just as simple as using the highest action at any given time. You might only need a strength 1 enclosure, in which case you would use a build action at the lower end, as long as you're trying to do things in an optimal way so that cards are cycling up through the strength appropriately. The game ultimately boils down to acquiring all of these enclosures, building out your park, filling up your hex grid, getting animals in order to get appeal, which is one of the core victory points in the game. The way that the victory system works is that there's a second point track, which is representing your conservation. And those are going in opposite directions on one shared track. And when they meet, when one person's appeal is high enough that they meet their conservation score coming the other way, that's when the game ends. And whoever has the biggest distance, whoever's markers have passed each other the most, then goes on to win the game. So for most games, or very often at least, one person will have a positive score and everyone else will have a negative score. You can kind of think of it as a race game in that way, but there are some occurrences where the person that will end the game might not be the person that wins it. It's also a fairly low-scoring game, if that system should be some indication. I typically do not score very high into the positives in a game of Ark Nova, and I have not seen anyone do that until Mark came along.
That's right.
But...
I'm the king of the animals.
Go on.
King of the animals?
Sorry, what did you just say there, Mark?
I said I'm the king of the animals, but you already knew that.
As the de facto only African on the podcast, I would like to claim title...
I mean, I got Egyptian. I got
Will you...
both parents Egyptian. That's right there. You're south. I got the north.
Okay, fair. Fine. Fair. I was going to dispute you, then I was like, oh, wait, no. I just worked myself into a corner there. I think that's probably going to cover the extent of the mechanics. There's a fair bit going on here. It's a little bit terraforming Mars in that you're getting cards and that each of the cards allows you to get new cards. There's a little bit of that zoo building aspect of something like a Baron Park where you're also covering icons which will give you certain rewards. And there's a little bit of a worker placement system boiled into it. It's a lot of systems built together. Somehow it all works without feeling extremely overbearing in rule set. There's some fiddliness in how certain cards work and interact, but overall the rule set doesn't feel horrendous.
Asterisk, right? The rule set is at least 30 minutes.
Yeah.
At the minimum, probably closer to 45. And a slow group would probably take an hour to get through the rules. I do feel like hobbyist board gamers are more equipped to handle this now than they were 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
But it is like and the kitchen sink
totally
type game.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because it is worth saying that when I say it's not that heavy, I want to say that it's not on the ultra heavy end of the spectrum. This is not on the Lacerda end of the heaviness spectrum, despite the giant box, despite the elaborate setup, despite the table presence of it. It is a medium heavy, leaning heavy game, and one that I found, especially by virtue of the theme, just very engaging and welcoming and warm. There's something that is just so fuzzy, for lack of a better word, of looking through these animal cards and deciding, okay, the red panda, that's the one that's going in my zoo. Absolutely. What did you guys think of Ark Nova? You guys played it for the first time yesterday.
So first of all, you just mentioned the art, and I want to touch on this immediately. I think that the most common comparison that is made to this game is Terraforming Mars, and I think that's definitely apt. I mean, I think if you've played Terraforming Mars, or if you're into the board game hobby and you see this game and you are taught the mechanics just even on a surface level, the first game you're going to be comparing it to is Terraforming Mars for sure. And whereas I feel like I should embrace the Terraforming Mars theme because I like the idea of, terraforming Mars and space travel and this sort of like sci-fi thing.
Oh, is that what the theme is?
I have to say, and maybe it's because I'm like a huge animal lover, but I loved the theme of Ark Nova. And I guess according to Neelan and Callan yesterday, there's been some sort of talk about the quality of the art, and some people aren't big fans of the way it's done. I guess the art is mostly like photographs that have been like done through a filter, sort of softening them or whatever. And that's been, I guess, a little controversial or not necessarily loved. I loved it. And maybe it was just the sheer number of animals, but it's just really fun that you have this huge stack of cards in the deck, and most of them have a different type of animal on it, and you just get to see all these animals in your hand or in the deck. I found that very, very charming and drew me to the game quite a bit. I really enjoyed that aspect of it.
I understand why people like Ark Nova. Let's let that sentence breathe for a minute. I understand it. I enjoyed a lot of the card powers and how the cards interact with other cards. I think that the idea that you're going to find super synergistic combos within the deck, which is like one of the largest decks I've ever seen, and believe me, I've seen a lot of big decks in my day, I find challenging. I think that like it's sort of like there's card tableau building and then there's everything else, and I found everything else to be sort of mundane. The hex-based map building that you're doing is a super solo affair, like on a player board of your own choice. The worker placement, like Neelan describing it as worker placement, blew my mind because I literally had not considered it. It's so barely there, worker placement. But yes, I guess it is worker placement. And the sort of like break mechanism, which is how things refresh, is an element of interaction, but barely. I just found everything else to be a very heads-down affair. I love interaction in general, and I don't find that there's a lot of it here. Again, there are people who love this type of indirect interaction. It does exist in the game, but then you're left with just a really long tableau builder where the luck of your starting hand, which again can contribute pretty significantly. And this isn't oh my God, there's too much luck in this game, but there are public objectives, and if they are about primates and someone has the primates sponsor card in their starting hand and they get 3 coins every time someone uses a primate card, like that's just an advantage that is very hard to overcome in what's essentially a race game. I just find a lot of it superfluous. I wish it was just stripped down to the core. I'm looking forward to Terraforming Mars Ark Nova when they make that version of that game.
Or Ark Nova Ares Expedition. Let's get into the caveat zone, right? Like, I love Ark Nova. And I want to get this...
Ooh, the caveat zone.
Right, exactly. I love Ark Nova. I think it's fantastic. I've now played this several times. I do want to actually very quickly shout out Woggers in our Discord, one of our moderators, for teaching it for the very first time and very much getting me onto the Ark Nova hype train like a couple of months ago. The thing I will say about this is the play of setting up your zoo, like putting out these tiles out and filling them with animals, and the very, like you said, Kellen, the very head down play of like building out your zoo is something I find very rewarding, very fun. I like looking at my zoo at the end of it and being like, oh, you can see how you've built it out. You can see all the animals you have in it. There is just something that is very, very appealing about that. And I think that the theme does a lot of the heavy lifting in a game like this. If we're not making it seem dry, if we're not making it seem heavy, there's something that is just delightful about it. But yes, this is a massive deck of singleton cards where one card could be the difference between you winning and losing a game. You have to be okay with that. It is not the most, at least based on my plays, it is not the most strategically sound, quote-unquote, game I've ever played. I've really had a good time with it, though, and I will keep it in my collection.
I will say that I did feel bad for the platypus that I stuck in my enclosure with a crocodile. I wasn't exactly sure how that was all working together.
There was also the animal you accidentally released, right? What was that?
Oh, my red
that's
panda
right.
from Asia.
Yes. And then you regretted it almost immediately.
And then I didn't score Asia points at the end of the game.
I think I fall in between Kellen and Neelan. I'm in the sort of Goldilocks zone here because I enjoyed it, I think, whereas I played Terraforming Mars a couple times but didn't really like it and don't think I'll play it again. Ark Nova, I liked, and I would be looking forward to playing it again, but I think Kellen's criticisms do ring true. I liked the board manipulation a little bit more than Kellen did. I liked the way that you're placing these pens on the board also acts as a way to have slots to put animals in. I think that was done in an elegant manner. But I do agree that the worker placement portion does feel superfluous. Even the placing the hexes on your own map wasn't necessarily the most interesting aspect. I just liked the way it handled your basically tableau size. I thought that was like a nice workaround. That said, it is very heads down. Like, I was doing my own thing, and I do think that there's enough cards, but they're not different enough that I feel like you'll always find synergies. I feel like it's not like a thing where you have to luck into a synergy or whatever. So I think you will, in the game, many times find a couple of cards and see that they're connected and see that wait for them to work together. But it is true that you can start, as Kellen said, start with a hand that is very beneficial right away, and you can just sort of like snowball that with your opponents not really having much to do to defend it. There's a shared card row that all the players can sort of pick from, and there were a couple times where there was a card there that I wanted desperately, and somebody took it just before me, but I don't think in any of the cases that they were gunning to do it because they knew that would work for me. So there is a little bit of that, but honestly, I really had very, very, very little idea of what was going on with Kellen's and Nealon's tableaus. And so I do see that as a clear negative for me. I loved the art of it. I loved the variety. I loved the synergy of the cards. That was all very fun. But just the idea that I had like basically no idea what was going on anywhere else but on my own board made me feel like it was not necessarily what I'm looking for in a board game. I know that there are a lot of folks who love that kind of thing, and if you do, this is the game for you for sure. But if you do really value interactivity, I don't think this is going to solve it for you. If that was the problem you had with Terraforming Mars, that's not going to solve it for you here. But that being said, Terraforming Mars, I think, is like the 5th rated game overall on Board Game Geek. And if that's true, this should be number 4. Like, this should definitely be, I think this is definitely a superior game to that. But I've heard nothing but incredibly glowing praise about Ark Nova. And I think that just buyer beware. Try it before you buy it, because if you're not a fan of Terraforming Mars, it's not a one-to-one comparison. It's not like you'll like it if you do like it or anything like that. But I don't think this is a undisputable 10 for everybody who ever plays it. I think there would definitely be segments of the board game population who will not even like this game,
I think the pushback will be, well, Mark, you could see what everyone is building and see that they have 4 monkeys and that you need to get to 5 to knock off the objective. And I would say to those people, your table better be really small. Like, it's not physically possible to see all of the cards that someone is working on because it's just such a table hog as well. It's like, I don't know how you would even do that. But I also found the length complaints overblown. I thought we got through it relatively quickly, and we're a little bit on the slower side. So I think it is definitely a refinement on a lot of things. It's definitely interesting. I see why people like exploring it. I also did not feel like the deck was that fun. There were some fun cards, but they were incremental cards versus like gonna change everything for me cards, right? There's no cards that are like
I think I felt there were a couple of those, the higher price cards. And I also felt like there were a couple times where I saw, because you don't really necessarily have to pivot from one strategy to another. You can sort of run a couple strategies. Like, I was going with primates, and then there were some Africa cards that came up that I was like, okay, so I'll play Africa and primates or whatever. So I just think that there's a lot of opportunities for synergy, and that was a fun aspect of it. But again, the grandness or the power of your synergies is, to a great degree, just going to be based on the cards that you get. You will find synergies, but the strength of the synergies is sort of, in some ways, I think, down to luck.
Yeah, and I do agree a little bit, Calvin. I think that the interesting cards feel more splashy and splashed into like the very powerful ones. And like, I would say the large majority of the cards just feel like, oh, I need this icon. This one has icons I don't need. I used to tend to look to that more than you look to the powers as written on the cards, because they just kind of feel a little bit like there sometimes. But when those big, powerful cards do come out, like the elephants and the lions and the bigger creatures, they do feel like big moments that are worth like striking out for to prevent other people from getting hold of them. I do want to say one more thing before we wrap up, which is that while I agree that I don't think the length is the craziest, I do think that when you go from 3 players to 2 players, it goes from a 2.5 hour game, to like an hour and a half game, which is such a great length of game for this. This feels like a meaty sort of event game that you can get through with 2 players in an hour and a half, setup notwithstanding. That is Ark Nova by Capstone Games.
Let me ask you this, Neil.
Mm-hmm.
Are zoos ethical?
I think zoos can be ethical.
Not my zoo. My zoo was full of appeal.
Yeah, Kellen did notably entirely forgo the conservation track in favor of the appeal of
That
his
would
zoo.
be cool if that was a viable strategy. Either or, like world's worst zoo, but it's very ethical, like it's like just the ants,
right.
In their outside habitat. All right. Here in the middle, before we get to our feature topic, we always like to plug something. I think today we will plug our Discord community. If you want to join and talk board games, you can join thousands of other board gamers at boardgamebarrage.com/Discord. It is a tremendous community where you can talk about digital tabletop and start playing games on Board Game Arena immediately, or just talk about the latest board and card games you're playing. We have other channels for video games and movies. It is a tremendously well-run community, and I can say that because we have other moderators that help us. Thank you so much for doing that. It is a very kind zone, and we like to keep it that way. So if you're interested in talking about board games with all of us, we have a really good time at boardgamebarrage.com/Discord.
Yeah, I would go so far as to say that if you're a new listener to the show and you're listening to us and you're like, I don't like these guys, that's fine. Still go to the Discord because there are a ton of other folks there and they are so great. I mean, our Discord is super welcoming, super fun. If you're looking to talk about games, that's the place to go. If you're looking to start a game on digital implementation, it's the way to go. So even if you don't like us, join the Discord.
And they're not afraid to say when they disagree with us and when we're
Yes.
quote-unquote wrong. So it is not just a community of sycophants. If you do hate us and feel like you disagree with what we're saying, you'll probably find someone that agrees with you over there at the Discord.
What would we be wrong about?
I mean, we never are, but some people still try to think we are.
Some people are so very wrong about games, but not us. Let us move on to the Golden Geek Awards 2021. We have the winners. They are in, and we are here to tell you if the people are right or the people are wrong. First of all, it's very hard to have a discussion like this, right? Because the people voted, right? It's done. Wingspan is the best at everything, okay? Best war game, Wingspan. Best artwork presentation, Wingspan. Best expansion, Wingspan. It's a base game.
But not the best bird game, as
Weirdly enough.
new listeners can find out by going to our Thanksgiving Day episodes, where we talk
Don't
about the best
listen
bird game.
to the Thanksgiving episodes. Please. Thank God we have 6 months for the new listeners before they hear a Thanksgiving episode. All right, let us just start from the top. The number 1 best 2-player game of 2021. The runners up are That Time You Killed Me, Summoner Wars 2nd Edition, and the winner is Radlands. How do we feel about this?
So for me, I have not played Radlands. I have, but I've not played the 2nd edition of Summoner Wars, although I've heard really good things. But my number 1 vote for this category was That Time You Killed Me, which we played recently and talked about on the show. I really enjoyed this as a 2-player abstract. That was my personal vote, and I'm happy to see it place.
Yeah, That Time You Killed Me was definitely in my selection as well. Still actually eagerly looking forward to playing more of that with you, Mark, when we get the chance. I am very sad to see Rift Force not represented here. I think that was very well deserved, or would have been a very well deserved recognition in this spot. But yeah, it does also push me to want to try Summoner Wars, which has been on my must-play list for a very long time.
Oh, have you not played it?
No, I never have.
It is very good. I have not played the new version, but I would love to if we want to pick it up and play it. Like a very tactical RPG, Final Fantasy Tactics Ogre style game come to life. Radlands for me, I think I got burned on Radlands by virtue of buying the $80 Kickstarter version and then there being a $15 or $16 version on Game Nerds when the game released. I think it is good. I think it is an interesting card dueler. I think it has a fantastic presentation, some of the best artwork and components and box and sort of the presentation. The game exists to itself. Really liked it, but I found it really swingy, and the people who like card duelers, that I know and am aware of, most of them don't love Radlands. Like, it's like, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. So for me, it's like Summoner Wars, man, I would have hoped for that. Rift Force I also loved. Yeah. Moving on to the most subjective. Well, these are all objective, right?
Right.
By virtue of the people having voted on them, these are the winners, right? We're only talking about winners today. Just winners. Artwork presentation. Okay. Runner-up, Oath, Chronicles of Empire and Exile. Are you kidding me? This is a runner-up? Have you seen this game? Runner-up, Canvas. Obviously objective. Objective truth. What I just said was subjective. Objective truth. The winner is Sleeping Gods. Are you kidding me?
I have no objection to this, actually. I think Sleeping Gods is incredibly good looking. It's a stunning amount of art. If this was most artwork and presentation, the maps in that game are all gorgeous. All of the illustration work is just stunning. It just has like a very cohesive feel and color scheme to it. I love the way Sleeping Gods looks.
See, my problem with Sleeping Gods is that I'm not really a big fan of Ryan Lockett games. And so when I see the art in Sleeping Gods, I just associate it with like Near and Far and Above and Below and those games that I don't really love. And so I just feel myself inclined to not loving the art. I didn't vote for it one way or the other just because I have not played it and not seen it all. But I'm not sure what you were talking about with Oath, Callan, because Oath was my number one pick. I voted Oath number one. Were you saying Oath is good, or were you saying Oath is...
Yeah, no, I'm saying it should have been Oath by like a mile.
Okay.
Oath, and it's not just artwork, okay?
Yeah, presentation,
If it was just
sure.
artwork.
Yes, agreed.
We could maybe talk about... Did you cut me off there? I was
No.
Because there was the 1-2 punch of me saying, not just the... But also the... And then you came in. Was that... I think that was intentional. Oh.
That was yeah. You're so beloved. I should never have done that. Sorry, I apologize.
Thank you for saying that. Presentation. The other half of artwork, presentation. Sleeping Gods is just drawings. They're very good. That's reductive.
Yes.
The artwork is very good in Sleeping Gods. But the production of Oath was the first game since PAX Premier 2nd Edition where you put it out on the table and you're like, wow. Like, this is happening. Like, it has this sense of presence from the player mat to the coins to all the components sort of working together in this broader way to be this, like, weird thing. It is very surprising to me that Oath did not win this, to be honest with you. Just straight up. Let us move on to everyone's favorite category. The category of friendship. The category... Actually, there is one more boring category. Cooperative game. There's one more category more boring than a category we're talking about now. Cooperative game. Runner-up, Micro Macro Crime City Full House, the coloring book. Runner-up, Sleeping Gods again. And the winner, The Crew 2, Mission Deep Sea. Have any of us played The Crew of Mission Deep Sea?
Yeah, I played a couple of games of it as well. And I have this weird, like... My experience of playing those couple of games, a couple of them... just broke in weird ways because it has a lot more of a randomized structure to the way that it does the missions compared to the first game. So that wasn't the West's first impression, I guess. But, I mean, look, The Crew's great, and I think The Crew 2 is better. So, no hard feelings here.
Personally, I had The Crew Mission Deep Sea as number 2. My number one pick was So Clover. I was surprised it didn't make top 3.
I was very disappointed to see that. That was my number one pick as well.
Yeah.
I have not played The Crew 2, but The Crew 1 is really good. And Micro Macro, come on. All right, moving on to our least favorite category, Best Board Game Expansion. Runner-up, Concordia Solitaria. So wait, let me get this right. There is a solo game category, right, which we're going to get to, but the best expansion is Concordia, the Solitaire expansion. I mean, I hope that's a Solitaire expansion for Concordia. Runner-up 2, Parks, Nightfall, but it's important that Parks is in all caps and Nightfall is in normal letters. And the winner, Lost Ruins of Arnak, Expedition Leaders, except this all uses a sentence case as it should, or title case, perhaps. What do you guys think about this? Have any of us played any of these?
I have not.
I have played Parks Nightfall. It kind of just seemed like fine. I mean, I think Parks in itself is fine, and Parks Nightfall just seemed more... fine. It didn't particularly excite me as an expansion. It didn't really do anything that felt like dramatically different from the original game, to be perfectly honest. But no, I've not played the other two, so it's a bit hard to compare them.
Yeah. In general, Buy more new games. Don't buy expansions. Most innovative, runner-up Canvas, runner-up Sleeping Gods, and winner Oath, Chronicles of Empire and Exile.
I think that's hard to argue.
I actually had a game that I didn't really enjoy as my number one, which is Adventures of Robin Hood. This has the advent calendar system to it, which I thought was interesting. I'm not a big fan of the game just because I think it's like mostly a storytelling game, but I think there's a lot that is innovative about it. Not only the advent calendar, but the way that it handles player turns and movement is sort of fresh and unique. I've never seen anything like it before. But yeah, that was my number one pick. I had Oath as number 2, and for me, number 3 was Brian Burrow. Although I guess that is much more of a down the middle a Euro game in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think what is most innovative about Oath is the Chronicle system, and that's definitely my least favorite part of the whole thing, but definitely a worthwhile winner there. All right, now we move on to the heavy hitters, the biggest, most important categories. Light, G-O-T-Y, got ya, right?
Right.
Game of the year, light game of the year, runner-up 1, Seven Wonders, Architects, runner-up 2, Canvas, and the winner, Cascadia.
Okay, so this is interesting because this is, I think, the only time where, because if I didn't play a game, I did not vote on it. But in this case, I voted on the games that I wanted to vote on, and then one of the games I did vote on, I rated a 10 because I thought it would be punitive. And that happens to be the game that finished in third place, Seven Wonders Architects. I was just like, this game should not be in the top 3. It just feels like so choiceless that I just did not enjoy it. For me personally,
I was just going to say, I am upset that Seven Wonders Architects is in here.
Yeah, for me, the top 3, I've had Cascadia number 1, So Clover number 2, and then I gave a tip of the hat to the Doctor for Whale Riders number 3.
Yeah, I had So Clover as my number 1. Again, disappointing that this is not in the top 3 at all, but I think So Clover is like one of the best games of last year on any level, and I'm surprised.
Yeah, and for a party game, such a crowded field to emerge, it's just like it really deserved more props, I think.
I happened to play Cascadia for the first time this weekend and really liked it. It was very cute. I think Christina will like it. I thought that having to refresh the 2 piles each turn was like a literal critical blunder. Like without that, Neelan and I were trying to come up with a robot that could dispense those pieces to you, and that would make it even better for me. I think that it is a shame that Savannah Park didn't make it. I think that's a sleeper. There's an app for Savannah Park, in case you're interested, and that's a Kiesling and Kramer game. But yeah, fine with that. Medium, got ya. The runner-up, Terraforming Mars, Ares Expedition. Runner-up, Sleeping Gods. Winner, The Crew 2, Mission Deep Sea.
Yeah, I think this is the one that is just confusing, really.
Yeah, this is, I guess, been the biggest point of contention, right, among the people chatting about.
I know. It's our friend, Mr. Mark Bigney, is just seething that Terraforming Mars, Ares Expedition is not the winner of this medium game of the year category. I'm fine with it. I think that, again, we can argue about what is light, medium, and heavy until forever, and we will, because that's what board gamers do. But, yeah, I would have put it in light, certainly.
If you are wondering, the BGG system for the votes does this purely based on the weight. So I think a light game had to be below a 2.0 in weight, if I'm not mistaken. And the Crew is like a 2.06, so it just barely nudged into the next category, which I get. That kind of just feels like one of those things that the system maybe needs more nuance for, but I don't know.
What happens, right, is that if you qualify for the category, then the most popular game wins, right? So it's almost never like the most innovative game that wins most innovative game. It's the most popular game that is innovative. Yes. I think that that's not always the case, but I think it's more the case. So because it qualified as a medium game, it won because it's the most popular game there.
My number one vote for Hero, I think if it had won, would also have been contentious. My number one pick was Ankh, Gods of Egypt, and that feels a little heavier than a medium game. Like, I could see that if that had won, people being upset that it was more of a heavy game, I think. But, yeah, my number one pick would have been Ankh, followed by Brian Burrow, followed by Crew was my third pick.
My number one pick for this was Mind Management, which did not make the top 3, but I think definitely deserves more attention. It's very cool.
All right, moving on to the heavy. Got ya. category, runner-up Imperium, Classics, runner-up Oath, Chronicles of Empire and Exile, a lot of colons. And the winner of the Heavy Gatya is Ark Nova.
Well deserved.
Never heard of it.
I think it's great.
I had not played this at the time of voting. I think if I had, it would have been third for me because my picks were Imperial Steam was my number 1, Coffee Traders was my number 2, Boon Lake was number 3, and then Oath was 4. I think I would slot Ark Nova probably third, maybe second for my own picks. Still have yet to play Dominant Species Marine, which I do want to play, and the Imperium games. I'm very eager to play those as well.
There is a contingency of people saying that it's not a heavy game, so that one is funny as well.
That Ark Nova is not a heavy game?
Yes, that's right. Moving on to the party game category, runner-up, Don't Get Got, Shut Up and Sit Down Special Edition, Hello Daddy. Runner-up 2, Stella, Dixit Universe. And the winner, Neelan, finally, just desserts, So Clover.
Did I forget that this was in this category? Because, yeah, that's great. I'm glad this did get recognized, actually, at some point.
Yep, 2 of my top 3 made it here. I had So Clover as number 1, Don't Get Got, Shut Up and Sit Down Edition as number 2, and I had Snakes as number 3.
I am surprised that So Clover and Ark Nova are both here and eligible based on, like, So Clover snuck into our top 50 of all time list for last year, and Ark Nova has, like, barely arrived, and yet we're here. So there's a little bit of, I'm confused by time. But I'm very happy for a So Clover win and very excited about it.
I've also played Stella Dixit on Board Game Arena, which is worth trying out there. And I think you two will get a kick out of it as well. It's very much a Dixit game, but it's quite a cute little take on the idea.
That sounds good.
Well, and I mean, Don't Get Got is a
Yes,
fantastic
absolutely.
game. So if Shut Up and Sit Down is designing an expansion, I'm sure that's good,
Yep.
as long as Tom had no say in it. And this is where I get sent to the sin zone. The runner-up for Print Play, that is the full category name, Print Play, Grim World, First Steps. There's some more punctuation here, but I'm going to spare you. Runner-up, Rats, High T at Sea, but Rats is all caps versus High T at Sea, which is not. And the winner of the Print Play category, Gloomholdin.
I looked this up when it came to voting. I didn't vote on any of these because I had not played them, but the idea that somebody took Gloomhaven and made it into an 18-card game just is, like, so amazing. I just love it. I don't know how well it holds up or whatever, but just the audacity to try that is just very, very commendable, I think.
This was also the first I'd heard of it, and I am definitely printing this out at some point to try it.
Yeah, for sure. And just another shout out to Shut Up and Sit Down, because I think they had a lot to do with Rats, High T at Sea, the distribution or publishing or whatever.
I think that they should win. Gloomholdin wins just on name alone.
Sure. I'd be okay with that too, for sure.
Yeah. And moving on to the category for 1, solo game, best solo game, runner-up, Ark Nova, runner-up 2, Sleeping Gods, and the winner, Final Girl. I will not comment.
Well, I've not yet played Ark Nova or Sleeping Gods as solo games. Sleeping Gods strikes me as a fantastic solo game because it's very much like those game books that I used to play when I was young, like role-playing game books. Final Girl, I know people love it a lot. I wish I liked it more. I very much bounced off of it pretty quickly. Kind of interested to get Mark's take on this, having played Hostage Negotiator, but yeah.
Yeah, I've yet to play Final Girl, but if I substituted Hostage Negotiator onto this list, I probably wouldn't have voted for it. It's a fine game for a quick play, but I don't think it would rise to a Game of the Year sort of thing for me. So if Final Girl is not a substantial improvement, then I probably would not have it up there either.
See, the thing for me is, right, people say, oh, Kellen doesn't like solo games, but it's not that, right? Okay, I have a different problem, right? I have too many friends. So it's every night of the week.
Yeah.
When would I play a solo game? Monday, Tuesday? It's not possible because I'm always getting called by people to do other things and play other board games.
Yeah, people do not understand how much editing I have to do on Kellen's feed when I get it, because there's just so many voices in the background that I have to like use a massive amount of technology and computing power to selectively take out all these other voices just because he has so many people at his place all the time.
Thank you for saying that. Moving on to the thematic game category, runner-up Final Girl, runner-up Oath, Chronicles of Empire and Exile, winner Sleeping Gods. So what I will say here again is it's just the most popular games that are thematic, and here we are.
See, the only game I voted for here, even though I've played a couple of these, the only one that I was looking forward to winning was Ankh, Gods of Egypt. I'm surprised that Ankh didn't get more play. I thought it was pretty well loved, but maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, thematic, I guess I get it. Like, I mean, this list of 3 is hard to be upset about because they are games that are extremely theme-forward. I guess the one omission here that feels weird to me is Unfathomable, which I kind of would have expected to be in this top 3.
Neelan, there was such a good way to say that sentence.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And you chose the absolute worst.
I'm going to do it again. I got to do it again. There's one thing I found unfathomable about this top 3.
I'm smiling.
And yeah, no, I think it's a very notable omission because I think, like, you know, Battlestar Galactica is one of the best thematic games of all time. And I was very impressed with how they translated that to a game while retaining everything that felt thematic about that game, but in an entirely different setting. Unfathomable, I think, works extremely well. And I'm surprised to not see it in the top 3. But yeah, Sleeping Gods is theme. Like, the whole game is theme. If you like Sleeping Gods, you like it because of its theme.
Because there's not a game there.
That is not what I said.
I think it's approximating what you said, is it not? It's close. It's at least on the same floor of what you said. Moving on to War Game, a category we know a lot about. Runner-up, Red Flag Over Paris. Runner-up, Atlantic Chase. Winner, Undaunted, Reinforcements. I know nothing about war games except that this is upsetting the war gamers, which I find hysterical. They are mad that it is both an expansion and barely a war game. It's essentially a card game that is a war game theme. That is hilarious. Thank you, the people, for doing this for us.
I had not played any of the candidates for this list, but this became, of all the lists, the one that I pretty much converted into want in trade in my Board Game Geek profile. I want to get more into war games for sure. I love games that are historical. So, like, I'm looking at the list of games that were candidates for this award. 1979 Revolution in Iran. I mean, that's like speaks to me. I love that idea. Bayonets and Tomahawks. Love it. You know, all these games. I'd heard good things about soldiers in postmen's uniforms from So Very Wrong. I know Mark and Mike are big fans of that. So these games are games that I'm seeking for sure.
I looked briefly into Red Flag Over Paris, which I'm not much of a war game enthusiast at all, but Red Flag Over Paris like struck me as interesting just by virtue of being a 2-player card-driven war game. I guess I don't know if that's also contentious in this category, but this does seem very much up your alley, Mark.
The one thing I was concerned about with Red Flag Over Paris is that people are comparing it to Fort Sumter, which was designed by Mark Herman, not by the designer of Red Flag Over Paris. I actually did not like Fort Sumter at all, really. So that scared me off of it. But regardless, I'm definitely looking into it for sure.
And now the category that is obviously the most objective category of all.
There can be no doubts about this.
The best board game podcast. Actually, not listed board game here, just best podcast. So
is that
interesting
true?
That it just says best podcast.
Okay, yeah.
We're the winners.
Again, objective.
Oh, wait. Sorry, I haven't got there. Runner-up, 5 Games for Doomsday. Runner-up, This Game is Broken. And the winner of the best podcast, according to the Board Game Geek users, best podcast, not best board game podcast, is Board Game Barrage.
Yeah, suck on that, Ira Glass. That's a This American Life joke. I will say, I mentioned this in the upfront, but I honest to God, did not think we were going to win because I thought the competition had stiffened from last year. I thought it was a much tougher field than it had been last year, where we finished, I think, in 3rd place. And so I did not think we were going to win this. I mean, this is like a murderer's row of podcasts. Beyond Solitaire, Blue Peg, Pink Peg, been around forever. Board Game Blitz, Ambi, and Co. are fantastic. Board Game Snobs, I've been on the show. Those guys are hilarious. Ben doing a lot of, speaking of innovative things with 5 Games for Doomsday. Game Brain, fellow Angelinos. Rolling Dice and Taking Names have been around forever. Sporadically Bored, we love Mike and Dan. And of course, This Game is Broken, who would probably have been my pick if you'd asked me before about who would have won the first spot. But look, best podcast, Board Game Barrage. What can you say?
I think that it is interesting through osmosis that it is more meaningful to me because of how meaningful it is for Mark. And I don't say that for any reason other than to be super transparent. Like, Mark is jazzed, and that's cool. I like that.
I want to clarify that I am like, I can't help it. Look, let's get into it. Like, I think it's strategic. It's better strategically to be the second place because you get your name on the ballot, because now that we've won, we're not eligible going forward. So this morning I was thinking to myself, where do we want to be? Like, if I could pick, where would we want to be? And the board gamer side of me said second place. You want to be second place. But I will not lie. When the results came in and I was scrolling down, I wanted us to be first. And I'm not blowing smoke to say that I think the other podcasts are fantastic. They definitely are. But, you know, we're board gamers. We like competition.
Once you got rid of, the 15 other board game podcasts that have also won that are no longer eligible.
I mean, if people want to say we're the 15th best podcast out there in board games, I will take it. I will take it.
No, it's exciting.
Yeah,
Come on.
it's rad by any measure. Like, I think that, like the others have said already, I did not expect this to happen this year. I knew and hoped that we were building towards this happening eventually, but I did not think this was the year it was going to happen. So it was really, really, really awesome when Mark called us up to like read through the results live.
And so, okay, I want to say that, this is all because of listeners. Like, 100% this is all because of listeners. I think we put on a good show. I think we put in effort for sure. But, I mean, I don't know if it's luck. I don't know if it's the type of listener we draw. I don't know what it is. I don't know the alchemy behind it. And nothing has made this clearer to me than our Discord. Just the people who are listening to the show, at least those who are on our Discord, are some of the most incredible, nicest, welcoming people that I've ever met in this hobby. And it's 100% due to the fact that we just have for some reason, attracted these like amazing people that are listening to the show. And obviously we could not have done this without their votes, without their backing. And just one more step further, I had this page up, refreshing, to look at the final breakdown of all the winners, not only for podcasts, but for all the awards. And there's a section below where people can comment on them on that page. And there is, 6 out of the 10 comments are people either agreeing with us winning or congratulating us. And it's just like, just scrolling through this and reading it, honestly, like, basically brought me to tears. It was just so sweet of people at a time where all these games are justifiably getting their rewards and getting their kudos. And it's probably unfair for so much of the accolades and the comments to be about us, but just for so many people to feel the desire to take this time to comment about how much they like the show is like so nice. It's like amazing. It means like so much. I've been on Board Game Geek for years and years and years. And, I remember seeing Best Podcast like 8 years ago, 10, whenever, and seeing these names and listening to all these shows, and to think that we are now among that group that have not only been, if you had told me when we started that 10 years from that day that we would have been nominated once for Best Podcast on Board Game Geek, I would have bit your hand off. I would have said, yes, I'll take that. I will 100% take that as our greatest accomplishment. And for the idea that we have now won this 4 years into it, it just means so much to me. Competition aside, like, it's just so rewarding and fulfilling, and it's just been great. And again, just the warmth of the people who felt the need to comment on this on the main page of Board Game Geek, to chip in with what they feel about it, and that they were happy about it. It's just amazing. Just melted my heart. Meant so much to me.
I'm just wondering if we'll get 4 physical medals or just 1.
I think I heard Tom talk about this on Sporadically Bored, and he said that him and Eric got 2. So I feel like we should get 4.
Yeah. We can work on that.
Can we tell him we had another tank?
Oh, for a
5?
5th?
Yeah, the eBay.
That'll go. That'll go for a lot. Definitely. And the final award for best board game app. Why are you laughing?
The idea that we did this big spiel on that, and now we're going to talk about board games app, which.
Yeah, the best board game app, Railroading Challenge, Concordia: Digital Edition, with the winner being Gloomhaven, the #1 board game of all time, and now the best board game app of 2021. No
Nolan,
comment.
why did you do
Why
this?
have I done this? No, look, I have not played any of these board game apps. I will say that I have it on good authority by several people that have played the Gloomhaven app, that it is an excellent implementation. I've at some point dipped on people like streaming it, and it looks just presentation-wise like phenomenal. So, if they faithfully represented Gloomhaven in a way that looks as good as it seems to look, then I buy it. It sounds like a great product.
And that is going to do it for today's episode of the Board Game Barrage podcast. Thank you so much for listening. You can reach out to us on all forms of social media, boardgamebarrage@gmail.com. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. You can join our Discord at boardgamebarrage.com/Discord. You can check out our Board Game Geek Guild at boardgamebarrage.com/guild. Please reach out. We love to communicate with everybody. Please stick around. We have fun feature topics every week, lively debates, spirited debates. Thank you to Heart Society Music for their fantastic song, What's on Your Mind, Kid, from their album Wake the Queens. Until next week, so long.
Bye-bye.
All right, we are recording locally. This is episode 224.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And we've won. Okay.
Who's the host?
I am. Who did you think it would be? Really? It's back to where
honestly, you honestly want me to answer that question?
Yeah, what do you honestly I want you to answer that question.
Well, I thought it was going to be Mark.
Why did you think
Yeah,
that? A
makes
him of
sense.
all people?
Yeah.
Well,
Shortest
yeah.
among us?
Mark, I think are we recording or no?
We are recording.
Yeah, of
Okay.
course we're recording.
Well, I don't
we
know
didn't
if
clap.
I don't know if it started or not. But
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
All right, let's clap. 3, 2, 1.
As excited as all of us are, I think Mark, if I had to rank us, I would say Mark is the most excited.
Yeah, you get stage fright. We can't let him.
I get
up
stage
there and
fright?
just- Yeah, he's gonna get up there. You're gonna be so happy, excited. You're not gonna be able to host it. Of course, I'm gonna host it.
Do you remember?
I was the first host.
Do you
I
remember-
was the now host.
Do you remember when he was the birthday boy host? He didn't get stage fright then, and that's that's
I
a
had the
big
pressure of
day.
my birth weighing on
That
me.
was his whole birth riding on
That's
his
right.
shoulders, and he did a great job. So I think you
Well,
should take it back.
one person flubbed the song, and it wasn't me.
Flubbed the so- Oh, flubbed
It
the
was
header,
me. I was way off key.
What?
Yeah, I feel good about that. I'm happy with
I
that.
like it. It was
Yeah,
fun.
Yeah,
That's
I
it.
mean, I think if someone is going to turn it off because of a bleep,
then they're not
going to
like
then-
they're not
Right.
going to like the podcast.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then this is where you say
Oh, this is where we say.
that's what you
Why
would
did you-
say. I'm not saying it.
Oh, I see.
We are not saying it. This is
Oh,
where you
only
would
I
say
say it. Yeah,
You'd
the
be like,
swears.
yeah, if they don't want to hear curse words, then
Curse them.
Yes, that's
curse
right.
them.
I am joined by my best friends, Mark I almost said orange tank.
Wow.
Dear Lord. By my friends, Mark the green tank,
Hello.
Neelan the orange tank,
Hello.
and the ever lovely Christina the blue tank.
Hello. I think it's funny that you almost called Mark the orange tank because we can see not only is he wearing a green shirt, but he has a green mic cover, and Neelan very clearly has an orange mic cover. It would be fun if we all wore our colors during the record, even though it would obviously just be for us.
That
Every
would be
week.
fun, though.
Every week, yeah, that'd be
Thematic.
fun. And like make it vibrant too. Like Neelan has to wear a neon
Right
orange.
orange shirt.
Yeah, you're gonna have to get like highlighter green.
I can do it. I'll do it.
And then-
Amazon has
yeah.
everything.
Forward.
Yeah, that's true.
You mean like I say curse you all, and then in the outro it's me saying curse them, but they don't know that came first.
No, but like
Yeah,
some
but
ways
that's
It's
the-
interesting. Yeah.
like that's what makes the outro work because then people realize it's like where
I
it
just
fit
don't want
in.
these
earlier.
new people to think I'm a weirdo.
Well, what do you think? That's the whole point.
Oh God, that's probably going in the outro.
Okay, so then I can just do the introduction. Well, yes, we did. I can
Curse
confirm.
you all.
She's gone. Actually, she literally just walked away.
Was that good?
That was great. That was wonderful.
great.
Loved it. Perfect. Love the Foley work.
We don't need to. Oh yeah, I wanted to just.
Yeah, I know. That's why they love you,
So-
because you commit to it. Perfect.
Okay. Goodbye, everyone.